Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Hugh Matthias. This is the second part of my series called Let's Talk About Disclosure. So thank you for joining me again. And yeah, just to recap on what I was speaking about in the first video, we asked the question, why now? Why is disclosure happening now? And I explored the 80-year history of the cover-up and some of the most notable cases. So if you haven't watched that video, go check it out. And now, yeah, I'll just sort of continue this thread. Firstly, I will give my thoughts share my thoughts on Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day movie, which I saw last week. The date was released. Eager beaver, movie geek here. And firstly, I had it in my head as Dave Disclosure. That's what I called it in the first video. So yeah, that was my my mix-up, but it stuck in my head as that for some reason. But it's actually Disclosure Day. And for those of you who don't know much about the film or who haven't seen it yet, I'm not going to give too much away if you haven't, because you know, I don't want to spoil it for people. So no, if there are any spoiler alerts, I'll say, but I'll try not to. So, I mean, it's classic Spielberg, very well made film, and very moving in parts. I do think that it portrays mass disclosure in a way that feels like that is what actually could happen. That's how it could be felt and experienced by the world. So in that way, very profound. And you know, it does quite beautifully speak to this idea of collective empathy, the idea that we're not alone, either in the world or in the universe. So I thought he did that quite beautifully. But I also think, even with it being an amazingly well-made film, it still only scratches at the surface at the true scale and complexity of this topic, and it's also, I can't help but feel, Hollywood sanctioned. The plot, the script, how the topic is handled, but it is, it's a thrilling film. It is a chase movie. It follows the main characters through their race to get this secret out to the world, and the main cast are fantastic. We have Emily Blunt, who plays Margaret Fairchild, the news weatherwoman, who, well, as you've seen from the trailer, who starts channeling this very strange alien or extraterrestrial non-human language. And then you have Josh O'Connor, who plays Dr. Daniel Kellner, so I'm just making sure I'm getting these right. And he is effectively the Edward Snowden of the UAP, UFO disclosure movement. And yeah, Colin Firth playing Noah Scanlon, who's suitably, he plays the role wonderfully of the intelligence agency head. He's effectively the nemesis of the film, trying to stop this information coming out. And yeah, and it's got some truly wonderful performances in it as well by Coleman Domingo, who plays the head of the disclosure movement. Amazing cast. So I do recommend you go and see it, but also ask you to bear in mind that it takes a quite simplified approach to the topic, and if you've researched and read about UAPs, UFOs and disclosure and the 80-year cover-up, you will know that it's much more complex and nuanced. And I also think that everything that's happening now is timed in a very specific way. This film, the release of all the data by the Department of War, which have just released their third tranche of files, which are now being accessed by well over 1 billion people. So the fascination is huge. And also a little further back, end of last year, as I discussed in the first video, you have the Age of Disclosure documentary, which features interviews with very high-level people in government and military, such as Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, and David Grusch, who is now one of the main whistleblowers to be giving intelligence and information to the public, and he's also been involved in a number of congressional US hearings, along with people like Luis Elizondo, who again was formerly part of classified programs. Figures like this have come forward in the past few years. If you go to YouTube and search UAP, UFO congressional hearings, you'll find a ton of videos. And more recently, in this past week, they are now part of what's become known as the UAP, or the Disclosure Caucus, and it includes figures like David Grusch, Luis Elizondo, and also journalists and authors like Leslie Kean, who wrote a fantastic watershed book called UFOs, sort of within the past 15 years. So yeah, I'll post links to these books and videos below the video, so you can go and do your own research. But this leads into what I want to say about the more recent era. In 2017, the New York Times released an article that revealed the existence of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP for short, and it was a 22 million program, Pentagon program, that had been running in the background for quite some time. And from that program, Luis Elizondo, who's been part of these many congressional hearings and part of the Day of Disclosure documentary, went public, and at great risk, professional risk to himself, and told the public about programs that had been running for decades, which also David Grusch has come forward and spoken to Congress about. These are reversal engineering programs, crash retrieval programs, and teams that go out and retrieve off-world vehicles of exotic origin. They then will clear up all of the evidence of that site where these vehicles have either landed or crashed, and they will take them to underground facilities. They will study the technology to either reverse engineer it or try and figure out how to turn it, into defense technology. So it's been going on for a very long time. And also David Grusch said in 2023 at the Congressional hearings, at many of these crash sites there have been pilots recovered, and he confirms that both the technology and the pilots recovered were of non-human origin. So the pilots, the non-human biologics that have been recovered and also studied and kept in underground facilities. And in a way, the Disclosure Day film touches upon this in the footage that it has in the film. I'm not wanting to give too much away, but if you haven't seen the movie, you'll see that it shares a lot of this type of classified. Although it's in the film, I believe that it's based on reality. A lot of the portrayal of the release of classified videos of non-human entities, of fighter aircraft having interactions with these objects in the skies, just to name a few of the events that that footage covers. So that is done in a very, very good way. I felt very very well done. So yes, so we are, like I said, we've had these people testifying under oath. This is gaining a great momentum now in the past few years, but we have to ask ourselves why it's being done in this way, why now? And I can't help but feeling there is an agenda. There are many theories, and I also do believe that what is being released is still just the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, this is a very complex topic, and we may not be dealing with craft from other planets, beings from other planets. We may be dealing with a phenomenon that's interdimensional, transdimensional in nature. Could be also a spiritual phenomenon. Could be the fact that these objects, these intelligences have been part of the Earth for thousands, if not millions of years, and that they share our reality in a neighbouring dimension. Other theories are that they could be us from a future timeline, that they are coming back in time, perhaps by millions of years, to try and prevent certain timelines from happening. So if they have the technology to traverse time, then we could be dealing with our future selves. That's also a theory that has been widely explored. More recently, this data release that came out, some of it declared knowledge of a number of species, and that has been spoken about quite prolifically in the Age of Disclosure documentary, and a lot of the information that's come out since then, towards the end of last year and early this year. So we had information that touched upon 4 distinct groups that have been widely discussed and talked about and explored in much of this material, and those are the Nordics, tall, or sometimes called the tall whites, very tall, 9 to 10 feet tall beings, very Nordic looking, as the name suggests, white hair, very pale or blonde or white hair, and then they spoke about other groups like the reptilians, reptilian humanoids, the greys, the small, more iconic beings that are often associated with abductions and close encounters of that nature. And if you do study this whole phenomena and read widely about it, like I have, it becomes apparent that perhaps the greys are programmable biological robots that are used by these other groups, the Nordics, the reptilians, to carry out the missions. That is a theory that has become quite prominent in recent years, that they are in fact genetically engineered. They have no sort of soul consciousness of their own. They are purely biological robots that carry out these missions in our skies and our airspace. They carry out the abductions, they carry out some of the cattle mutilations that have been widely reported. Where cows have been found with half their face very surgically removed, but there's no blood. They've had their reproductive organs removed, and also during abductions, abductees will often report that they've had reproductive material extracted from them. So that seems to suggest some kind of genetic program, that these beings perhaps don't have the DNA or the genetics that they need, so they are in fact running a human alien hybridization program, and that there are alien human hybrids on the planet. So yeah, a lot to take in. It's big. I'm talking about some big themes here, so yeah. So there's also this idea of, with the release of all this information, that there is a project or an agenda that's often discussed online, and that's called Project Bluebeam. And the idea is that the increase in all of this information being shared with the public is leading up to what some have called perhaps a staged fake alien invasion, where craft will appear in the skies and the world will be told about the non-human presence, and that in order to protect the world from it, we need to unite under a one world government, which will use the pretext of this alien invasion to create that centralization of power. Not saying that I think that's going to happen. It's just one of the theories that is being spoken about. I'm not here to give you definitive guidance on what you should think in any way whatsoever. I like to share information as kind of a meta-analysis of what's out there, so that people can decide for themselves, go off and research and use their own intuition, their own sovereignty to decide what resonates for them or what doesn't. And as always, if it doesn't resonate for you, discard it. If any of what I'm saying doesn't resonate, then discard it. That is really the best way to, I believe, the best way to navigate any of this information. So yeah, just wanted to say that. So with this new technology that's being spoken about with these objects, we have a whole new potential paradigm of physics and energy and matter arising. And these craft, we can call them, these objects, have displayed the most mind-blowing abilities and characteristics, such as hypersonic velocity and acceleration, and no visible means of propulsion, no seams, no rivets, just a completely smooth surface. They have the capability of transmedium travel. Well, that means that they can be seen in space, they can be seen in the air, and they can also be seen in the water. And many, many objects have been tracked in our oceans, moving at incredible speeds. Some of these objects very, very large. And what the theories are, some of the theories are, is that they have the ability to manipulate space-time, that these objects create their own space-time bubble. So from our dimension, they seem to be performing these fantastic feats of maneuvers, being able to do a right turn at 10 times the speed of sound, for example, entering the water with no resistance. So if you think about it, if you imagine a UAP a bit like a sphere of glass water with a goldfish. So you have a sphere filled with glass, you have a goldfish in the center. if you move the glass ball around, the goldfish is going to be cushioned inside. It's not going to feel anything, and that's a very, very simple way of perhaps explaining how some of these objects move. They have their own gravitational field inside, so the occupants will feel no inertia at all when these craft are accelerating to thousands of miles per hour and stopping. With the events in 2004 and 5, I believe, the USS Nimitz was tracking some of these tic-tac UFOs, and they were finding that they were coming down from space, from the outer edge of the envelope of the atmosphere at 80,000 miles an hour and stopping at about 30 to 40,000 feet and then going back up. Well, there is no known technology that we have that can do that. So yes, this is, you know, it's a highly fascinating area, but it's also one of the most classified, because like I said, we're dealing with new technologies that could make the whole geopolitical fossil fuel paradigm on our planet completely obsolete overnight. So very, very disruptive tech. And like I said, it's been studied in the underground bases. They're figuring out how these things work. They probably already have technologies and craft that can replicate these abilities. I'm sure the militaries and the governments of the world have this technology, yes, in classified programs in the black budget world, what are called special access programs. I'm sure some of the craft that perhaps we see in our sky have been manufactured by us. So just, yeah, something to think about. So yeah, going back to the idea of this exotic technology, these propulsion systems, I think it can be safely assumed that if these craft are traversing dimensions, if they're traversing wormholes, if they're bypassing the need to travel through the universe at the speed of light, if they're perhaps using some other form of physics or medium to travel in that we have no understanding of yet, you can be pretty sure that they're not running on petrol. So this brings us to the idea of the free energy, the anti-gravity technology that they're using for these exotic propulsion systems and energy systems. And the military and intelligence, government apparatus establishment in the US is comprised of bodies like the CIA, the private corporate defense contractors, the Department of Energy. So these are the main groups involved in this highly classified world, and the reason that you have the corporate private sector defense contractors involved is that it can be above congressional oversight. So it doesn't have to tell the government, the president, the Congress, or any other elected officials what it's doing. And these agencies see presidents and politicians and even figures like the head of the CIA as temporary staff. They know that they're only going to be in office for a number of years. So they're on a need-to-know basis, and often they don't know much at all. So that tells you how high and how deeply this is hidden. So, like I said, yeah, so that the fossil fuel, the global fossil fuel energy paradigm has trillions worth of dollars tied up in it. It's the dominant geopolitical power structure of control on our planet, control of energy and resources. And I think this could be why many scientists have recently, who are working in these fields of classified technology, exotic propulsion systems, have been disappearing. That's an ongoing investigation where so many of these figures who are investigating these technologies, like I said, have just been disappearing. So yeah, we're in a very multifaceted time with this, and it is something that is just evolving every day. So yeah, there is so much obviously to explore and think about. And you know, if you want to go and look at the information, like I said, I'm going to be posting links below so that you can go and do some more exploring of yourself. And also the phenomenon, it asks us to reconsider who and what we are as a species. So it asks the question, if non-human intelligences have been present for 80 years or more, I believe they've been here much, much longer, they've been interacting with the Earth for thousands of years, kind of puts a new light on our where we are in our evolution, and that we could be relatively new civilizations. Some of these intelligences could be millions or billions of years ahead of us, and it certainly feels that way when you see how some of this technology presents and behaves, and the characteristics of it. We really have no reference for what it is, and what it might be. So yeah, I think for this video, I'll wrap it up there, but what I've just spoken about in terms of what it says about us as a species and our understanding of ourselves and of who and what we are, I'm going to be diving into that in the next video. What the truth could be about humanity and our species, and why there is such an interest in us by these objects, why they are studying us in our skies, why they are studying our facilities. A lot of it, of course, goes back to in the modern era, World War I, like I said in the last video, our use of atomic weapons. I get the sense that using nuclear weapons, atomic weapons in our reality affects other dimensions. So there is this very serious concern. But also, you know, it helps to understand part of the secrecy is that, you know, the governments of the world, they're not in control of this phenomenon. These objects are in our airspace, they're making incursions into airspace over military installations. They have been documented and recorded as taking a great interest in nuclear missile sites, being able to power them off. In one alarming case in Russia, it actually powered them on, like I said, but it did then switch it off. But just showing that aspect of this, perhaps the secrecy is because the governments don't want the world to know that they're not in control of this. So trying to keep a level of calm among the population. But like I said, we're in the age of disclosure. It'll be fascinating to see how this information gets handled, how it makes its way through to the public. But like I said, it's still the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more to this topic. It's so much more complex than I think any of us can imagine. So yeah, but like I said, in the third video of this series, I'm going to dive into the deeper metaphysical and spiritual aspects of the phenomenon and what it says about us as a humanity. And I think there are aspects to us that are deeply unique and special, and that's partly the reason why there is so much interest in us as a planet, as a species, as a civilization by these intelligences. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here with me. And if you like this content, please do hit the subscribe and like buttons. It really helps my channel grow. And wishing you a great day, and look forward to seeing you in the next video.